Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle. I am joined by my co-host, Mr. Michael Hall. The Burgundy Zone is a part of the Frederick Podcast Network. You can find out more by going to www.listenfrederick.com. The title of tonight's episode is Stop the Steal, as in S-T-E-E-L, with the Steelers matching up this weekend at 1 o'clock.
Oh, I get it.
In Landover, yeah. Use a little noggin there. But we thought we'd bring in funny man, insider himself, Mr. Michael Phillips of 910 The Fan in Richmond. Thank you for joining us on this Wednesday evening. How you doing, Michael?
There's nothing funny about good defense. That's what makes the world go round.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of defense, Washington moved the needle yesterday on not only a local scale, but nationally as well by trading for Marshon Lattimore. And can you kind of break that down for us a little bit? What does it do for our defense, and do you expect for him to be playing this Sunday?
Yeah, obviously long-term you talk about you move San Ristel back inside because you got St. Juste and Lattimore. I don't think could be wrong. I don't think they're going to do that on Sunday, right? Because Lattimore's limited practice participant. I think the notion that he could go 50 snaps on Sunday is probably a little premature. He's going to have to work his way back up to that. So you talk about in the interim, you're probably going to leave San Ristel outside against the Steelers receivers this weekend. Maybe have some sort of substitution, give Lattimore 10, 15, 20, whatever the number is, snaps, see how he plays, see how everybody adjusts, leave Noah Igbenogany where he is. I think he's settled into a nice groove there. Nobody's going to suggest he should keep his playing time even with Lattimore here, but he's improved over the course of the season, and that's been one of the keys to success for these guys, and getting those kind of productions out of less heralded guys on the defense. From a financial perspective, I love this. I mean, they've got the money to spend. You've got him under contract for a little while. I think that was one of the things that was important to me was any contract you bring in, I think it's important to Adam Peters too, any contract you bring in is a guy who can stay here for what you're going to call the Jaden Daniels rookie contract era, the next 2 seasons, where the window is wide open to win. Everybody sees it.
Absolutely. And Michael, Marshon Lattimore being 6 foot, 192 pounds. I'm sorry, Hall. But what does he kind of do for a defense? In your opinion, just looking at it from what would be the difference between what was going on in defense before and then with Lattimore?
Yeah, your hope is that he's a true one, right? It makes everybody else better by getting them where they belong. I actually am a big Benjamin St. Juste fan, but I'll tell you what you know. He's a 2. He's a CB2 in this league, and he's playing out of position going against the best guy every week. If you can get Lattimore to that space where he's locking down the best guy every week, St. Juste becomes better, San Ristel becomes better, Igbenogany becomes better coming off the bench for limited snaps. It makes everybody better. The other thing I really like about him, he is a physical player, and I think that's what's really been good for this defense. I'm thinking of the Bears game in particular. These guys played a physical, violent game against the Bears, and I think that's helped him develop a reputation that it's not an easy out if you come play Washington, and I think he'll contribute to that.
Definitely seems like they're adding the Bobby Wagner of the secondary. Kind of that bigger physical guy, veteran who's been there before and is a fighter, so to speak, not scared of anything. Sorry, Hall.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. So if you would have, after week 1 and week 2, you would have never thought a move like this would have been imaginable because of how those 2 games kind of turned out. But here we are going into week 10, and they make a move for a guy like Lattimore. And before the move, I kind of thought this team was like trending towards getting into the playoffs and possibly hosting a game, but definitely my expectation is honestly to win a playoff game for the first time in God knows how long at this point. So what is the expectation now if it changes now that you added a guy like Lattimore? Is it maybe the second round of the playoffs? Is it NFC Championship? Is it, I don't want to say the Super Bowl word because I maybe a year or 2 off, like you said, but what is the expectation now in your eyes?
Well, I mean, your assumption's great. You're 7-2. You got to make the playoffs. If you don't make the playoffs at 7-2, something went seriously wrong. So I just love that we're talking about, what you do in the playoffs as opposed to will you make the playoffs? That just a great mindset to be in at 7-2. I think I not to overlook Pittsburgh, big game, fun game. So much rides on that Eagles game, right? Because now you're talking about home field in the playoffs. I don't think the Eagles are slowing down. That's a great roster. I love the addition of Saquon there. I think the only team that can beat the Eagles right now is the Eagles, and they've done it a couple times this year. They do it to themselves, so it's not unthinkable. But if you're talking strictly, let's compare the rosters spot by spot. I think the Eagles are probably more talented than these guys right now. And so, yeah, I'd consider them slight favorites, but it's Thursday night football. It's one game. These guys have number 5. He seems to pull things out in big moments. If they beat the Eagles, I think you're looking at a home playoff game. If they lose to the Eagles, you're looking at going on the road. It's so tough because who do you play, right? If you end up playing the Lions, I don't like that matchup one bit. I think Detroit's a great team playing well right now. If you play the Packers, these guys can eat the Packers for lunch right now. I just this defense could stop that Packers offense, and I think this offense could gain yards on them. So it's such a matchup driven thing when you get to the playoffs. You look across Minnesota, right? Like, could Sam Darnold pick these guys apart? That's why you bring a Lattimore in, right? Because I think that that's a favorable matchup for Minnesota. Okay, now you add in a guy. All right, is it a different calculus now? The other thing I'm watching closely is how did these guys hold up to the end of the season? We're seeing injuries, we're seeing attrition here.
Yeah.
What kind of team's going to make it to the playoffs is a very big factor as well.
Absolutely. Now, I know Hall got you off track a little bit, but I gotta do my Dan Quinn impression here. Let's bring it back to this week. We got the Steelers this weekend, Michael. So that being said, what are some players that have to have good games going against the Steelers? They are a very good roster. They're sitting at 6-2 themselves. They made a couple moves by adding in Mike Williams from the Jets, and then old friend Preston Smith is making his debut for the Steelers at Landover, which I'm sure is a weird thing for Preston. But what are some guys that you think have to have good games on Sunday besides, Jaden?
Yeah, you look at the defense, right? That when they've produced takeaways, this team's been nearly unstoppable, right? If they can get the Steelers offense to cough the ball up to intercept them and get that favorable field position. My favorite stat this year of all the great stats, I don't know, my favorite stat might be unstoppable on 4th down, 11 for 11. That's a great
Right.
stat. My other favorite stat my many favorite stats is 3 turnovers. Just incredible. 3 turnovers through 9 weeks. The offense is doing its part to sustain the drives, to keep the ball away, to keep the defense fresh. But in those games where the defense has created the takeaways, man, you just see the difference that makes and the energy that brings. And to get one, to get the crowd on your side, because it's going to be a 50-50 crowd. There's just no point in pretending otherwise. The Steelers are here. Even if these guys were undefeated and had Joe Theismann starting it, it'd be half Steelers fans. They find their way places. To get the crowd on your side, to get a big play, I'd love to see one of those, maybe a Dante Fowler edge rush, where you just make something happen early.
Absolutely. And to your credit, the Steelers defense this season, this is a crazy stat. They have 10 interceptions and 9 forced fumbles so
Yeah,
far this year.
yeah. It's a
Yeah.
fun, matchup. There's some good defenses in the league. I think these guys are the best. I really do. I think this is the best defense in the NFL against the hottest offense in the NFL. I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that right now. This is a fun game.
First in red zone percentage on defense and second in points per game. Sorry, Hall.
Good
No,
defense.
that segues right into my question, because my question is, like you said, this offense is rolling right now. Jaden Daniels is on fire, throwing darts out there to Noah Brown, Terry, all these guys. What's going to be the key to this offense going against that tough Steelers defense like you just talked about?
Yeah, and I'd love to see Brian Robinson back. Part of me, although, also says like, hey, you got a Thursday nighter in Philly. This is fun. That's important, right? What was the right interesting important? That was the Ron Rivera thing,
Right.
right? We're done with Ron Rivera things, but this one's fun. Next one matters. So I want to see B Rob, but I don't want to see B Rob. Establishing that run game, being able to get some, and then you mentioned the red zone. I think that's these guys have been inconsistent in the red zone. So certainly the ability to cash in when you get there. This Steelers offense, I don't think they're going to score more than 21. This is kind of not what they do. So if you could punch in a couple in the red zone, it gives you a huge advantage.
Absolutely. And obviously, the Steelers' defense being second in points per game, the Steelers' offense is 13th in points per game, averaging 23.4. So it definitely seems like their MO is to keep the other opposing offense's points down so their offense can squeak it out for them. And that's usually been their MO for this season, especially with Justin Fields. But Russell Wilson, that's a different animal. Which brings me up my next question for you, Michael. Talking, Mark Ein called into Grant and Danny today and talked about that they are incorporating a burgundy and gold towel that they'll be handing out to all the fan base to kind of combat the stupid, terrible towels that the Steelers people bring with them. And it's like people around this area, like they don't even go to the games up north, like they're not even season ticket holders, but they still bring towels. What do you think of that idea? I think it's brilliant.
I love that they're trying things, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, doing things is better than not doing things because you could do it. You could have a defeatist attitude about this too. Like, yeah, they're coming. What can you do about it? Give it a try. Yeah, okay. Hand out towels. It costs you 12 cents. It makes everybody happy. Why not? Why not have some fun with it? Give it a try. Hope it works. It'd be fun if it worked. If it doesn't work, nothing's really lost. It's just Mark Gein's 12 cents per person, there. So
Hmm.
not my money.
Yeah, yeah, it's a good point. Last time Russell Wilson was here, he was with Seattle, and I know a lot of the fan base was like kind of dreading him coming here because he's killed us in the past, but he definitely did not look like the Russell Wilson of the younger Seattle days. This is his first time coming back here, I think. Do you think that Joe Witt is going to be able to scheme guys up and get after him to kind of make him uncomfortable, or do you think he's going to have the Fountain of Youth Russell day against this defense?
Yeah, we've had a weird amount of Russell Wilson for him being in the other league because there was the Broncos game last year with
Broncos, yeah.
the near Hail Mary at the end.
Yeah.
Didn't have the Jaden Daniels magic. Just saying. Yeah, the Monday nighter 2 years ago when Seattle was here, that
Yeah.
was not vintage Russ at all. You're very correct about that. Um, he's a guy who this is what makes the Steelers offense interesting to me, right? Because with Fields, they didn't want him to do anything, right? The defense is going to win the game. You don't do anything. Just maintain. That's not Russ. Russ tries to make plays, and so you have the opportunity to turn that against him and make plays the other way. And I love the idea of being aggressive against this guy, trying to get to him early. I do think he's playing some really good football right now and some inspired football. I don't think it'll be easy, but against a guy like that, I don't like sitting back, right? You play Fields, do you want to sit back? All right, let him get his 21, let Jaden do his thing, let him cook. Against a guy like Russ, if you let him get into a playmaking space, he might get there. I love the idea of being disruptive.
Yeah, he's absolutely hard to bring down as much as he's not the biggest guy in the world, but he's still a stocky human being, and he's able to slip out of things. But Washington's defense, they're fifth in passing yards on defense. They're 28th in rushing yards. The Steelers' offense, they are 26th in passing yards and 8th in rushing yards. So, just speaking defensively, Michael, what do you think the MO is going to be? Because obviously, we all know the Steelers want to fundamentally run the football up the middle, be able to commit there, and then be able to spread you out outside. But Jason Simmons, the passing game coordinator, and Joe Witt have done a great job at being able to nullify the passing game on the past couple weeks. So, what do you think is the most important thing when facing Pittsburgh?
Yeah, and I do think Russell Wilson's better than Daniel Jones, but you look at that game plan, what they did last week, making them one-dimensional, arguably, for most of the game. That's a great place to start, right? If I'm Pittsburgh, I don't love seeing that tape and putting that on. You say, okay, Daniel Jones, dynamic quarterback, guy who can get out in space, run. We saw that, obviously, a little bit of that. But on the whole, they did a very nice job at containing him. I think that's your starting point for the game plan, is what did you do to the Giants last week? Can you replicate that against the Steelers?
Yeah. So obviously the Steelers, they don't really have a lot of weapons outside of George Pickens. Najee Harris has had a pretty decent season, probably in its final year in Pittsburgh. But who's more important to stop to disrupt them? Is it Najee Harris in that running game, or is it the George Pickens down the field, Russell Wilson connection?
I think it's the down the field. Russ throws such a pretty deep ball, right? You've seen him kind of use that to get roll in the last couple of weeks. We start slow against the Jets, maybe not vintage Russ, and then when he connects on that 40, 50-yard pass, but he's going to try to get one to Williams early, right? Try to get him in the flow if he's playing. There's that that's what gets him going is completing those long passes and getting the moon balls going. Uh, I got to pick shutting that down. If you have the rush, it's good. I certainly won't deny Najee. He's a great back, but yeah, that happens 5 yards at a time, not 50 yards at a time. So I'm always shutting down the deep ball.
And the fantastic point by you, because the Steelers' offense are 30th in red zone conversion percentage. So make them go down the field, be able to tire that out a little bit, and then kick a field goal, because those big plays is really going to change things and give them that momentum. You want to be able to force them into it, because obviously they have a difficulty in that red zone. So stopping the big plays huge. We all know about the rushing aspect of last week, but I think this defensive staff has done a great job of kind of just showing that you can build on things and be able to correct them. Now, just overall speaking, Michael, what is your confidence level heading into this game?
I think this is probably a 50-50, 60-40 game. It's hard for me to say either team's definitively better than the other. They're both really good football teams, and I maybe Baltimore's the comparable. I think
Yeah.
Baltimore's probably a little better than Pittsburgh, right? Going into that Baltimore game, like, hey, if they win this, like, we're just gonna go bananas. This is amazing. Probably won't, but they hung. Certainly if you run that Baltimore game back, it's not, oh, these guys were outclassed. They were beaten. They weren't the better team, but they're close. They hung. I don't think Pittsburgh's better than Baltimore. I think Baltimore's better than Pittsburgh right now overall. So how big's that gap? I think we'll find out on Sunday. I'd probably install the Steelers as slight favorites, but this is a game either team can win.
Absolutely. Now to
Yeah.
wrap this up, Michael, or do you want another one?
Yeah, I was gonna say just kind of sticking with the confidence level theme. What's your confidence level in Brandon Coleman and Andrew Wiley versus T.J. Watt and Highsmith
And Preston
Yeah,
Smith.
and
yeah.
Preston Smith? Yeah.
Don't forget Preston Smith. The homecoming game. You know, I take back everything I said about this offensive line in training camp. They've been so good this year. I think a lot of that's coaching. I think a lot of that is Tyler Biadasz. I think he's just doing a
Yep.
phenomenal job. They are not afraid to get help in there either. The running backs are blocking their butts off. The tight ends are blocking their butts off. That all those little things help along the way. Everybody trusts everybody else to make the block. I got big time confidence in this O line right now.
Wow. It's crazy to hear that after so
I know,
many.
It,
right?
Uh,
That was not what people were saying like less than a year ago. So
yeah,
it's
I didn't.
just crazy to turn around.
Yeah, I could not have been wronger on that. I thought that was a huge liability, especially with a rookie quarterback. And Biotish has been a huge difference maker. The scheme's been a huge difference maker. I love everything about it.
And obviously, they did a very good job last week against the Giants. They didn't give up any sacks. Obviously, they were the number one team in sacks heading into last week. But having Dexter Lawrence being the sack leader in the middle is very much different than having Alex Highsmith, having TJ Watt, and Preston Smith on the outside to be able to converge. But that's where those chip blocks come into play and everything like that. But, Michael, to wrap this up, only a couple more questions for you, brother. Unsung hero that you could see in Sunday's game.
Unsung hero for Sunday's game. Yeah, these receivers have been so like Noah Brown kind of got all the targets last week. It seems like teams are double teaming Terry, and you need your guy of the week to step up, right? Is it Olamide Zaccheaus? Is it Noah Brown? Is it Zach Ertz? But you need that second guy to step up, when Terry's getting the attention. So I'd love to see one of these guys, maybe one of the young tight ends, maybe like a Senate game that could be fun. Break him in a little bit. I think there's a lot of opportunities for these receivers to make some plays, given the focus on Terry right now.
I absolutely love it. Now, with the addition of Marshon Lattimore, a lot of people have speculated. You yourself talked about bringing Sanders still inside, but every team offers a difference in variety of wide receivers. Do you think it's much more likely that we'll possibly be seeing like a rotation of the secondary, where maybe one play Sanders still's on the outside, and then we'll have BSJ in the slot, or do you think it's going to be much more so of where the guys get planted is where they're going to stay?
I'm excited to see because clearly Sanders still can do both. He's a
Right.
smart kid, and as a rookie, they've loaded him up with responsibilities. He's handled them all. He's moved around him very nicely. Uh, St. Juice would be an interesting one to see enter that rotation as well, right? So I'm excited to see how they use their new weapon and how they rotate everybody around. Igbenogany's another guy we've seen him moved during the season, and it had good results when they moved him inside. So I think it's absolutely about getting guys in the most comfortable positions.
And real quick before my last question, how likely do you think that Jaden Daniels deserves to be in the MVP race, and what would you give his percentage chance of not only being like rookie of the year but possibly winning MVP?
Yeah, he's certainly rookie of the year. I mean,
Yeah.
it would take a stunner to get that. I get the sense voters don't like voting for a rookie to be MVP. So
Okay.
I think he'd have to be extraordinary down the stretch. Um, you get the sense it's Lamar's. I'd love to see Saquon in that conversation. He's made some great plays. Um, it'll come down to the results, right? If these guys keep this hot streak alive and win, he's hard to ignore. The things he's doing are pretty incredible out there. At the same time, tough stretch of games here. Steelers, Eagles, Cowboys. That's a tough 3 games. I think that's a bookmark that. That'd be a good conversation to have on the other side of these three. See how he handles a really tough stretch of opponents here.
My man. Last question I have for you, Michael, before I let you get out of here and enjoy your dinner. Prediction for the game. How do you think it's going to play out officially?
Yeah. I think the Steelers will get to 21. I mentioned I love this Steelers defense. I really do. The more I watch them, the more I like them. Uh, it's tough to pick against number 5 right now, because all he does is make plays. On paper, I'm picking against him 21-17. Uh, I I'll believe anything though. You give him the ball, the chance to win, 2 minutes. I I mean, there are very few people. Yeah, Patrick Mahomes comes to mind. I don't know if there's anybody else I'm putting on that list of guys I want with the ball. He's been mega clutch. Just keep it close, let him cook.
Last one, last one. Are you at all concerned about Austin Seibert having a possible hip injury? He was on the did not practice report today, injury report.
I just need to not have that Giants situation happen where he
Right.
goes down with the first kick. One of those per season, and ideally it happens to the other team would be great. We'll see how he is throughout the week. I trust this staff to make the right call, but if it's close, I don't want to risk that Giants situation because you saw that was brutal. Cost them the win in week 2.
Yeah, absolutely. Michael, I can't thank you enough for joining us, brother. Before you get out here, would you like to plug your social media handle and your show, just in case anyone watching hasn't followed you yet?
Michael P and RVA. Yeah, I'm on the radio 10 to noon every day here in Richmond, 910 The Fan. It's a good time. Tune in. They're winning, so it's a fun show right now.
Absolutely. Totally agree with you there. Have a
Yes,
great weekend,
sir.
Michael. Enjoy the game.
Take care,
Appreciate it.
guys.
All right, everybody. We just spoke with a man, Mr. Michael Phillips. It's always fantastic to. What did
Yeah.
you? Any big takeaways from what he said besides the title of tonight's episode?
um, no, not really. Everything he said was on point. Actually, I was a little shocked that he said, but it made sense after he explained why. But I was a little shocked that he said it was more important to stop the deep ball with him and Pickens and getting him going over Najee Harris because obviously traditionally, like you've talked about, Steelers are a defensive team, run the ball, establish the run,
Right.
that gritty, tough team, and kind of keep it close and let your defense kind of win the game for you. But as he explained it, and you kind of think about Russell Wilson's career and what he's doing with the Steelers right now, he does kind of get that momentum going with the deep passes and the deep ball. Which obviously, once you get the deep ball going, it's going to stretch the defense out. Then that opens up the run game for Najee Harris. So definitely makes sense what he was saying.
Yeah, and right now the Steelers' offense, they're tied for 12th on third down conversion percentage at a over 39% clip at the moment. I understand what he means because with this Steelers team, obviously we learned the MO from the Ravens, right? We talked about with Pete Medhurst, which I've been praying for Pete Medhurst.
Yes,
Obviously
definitely.
having the cancer tumor removed from his head, and I think there's a little bit more going on to it, but hopefully we get some more updates for him. But he expertly talked about how what Washington has been doing to these teams where they liquidate the clock by running the football really well, converting in the red zone, and being able to take the ball away from the opposing offense to give them only a short amount of time. You'd have to imagine that's what the Steelers' game plan is going to be against Jaden Daniels and this offense that can score in a hurry. But I understand what Michael is saying in the sense of because they're 30th in the red zone, you don't want any big plays to happen, especially through the air, that will give them those easy points. You want to force them to struggle, get to that red zone area. That way, anytime you get a field goal, that's a plus for our offense. But obviously, it also goes into Austin Cyber being injured and everything like that. So I understood what he was essentially saying, because I agree with you, though. One thing that we learned about from New York last week, to your credit, Mike, is that those running the ball well, especially early on, created those short down and distances on third down, which made it easy for the Giants to convert, having Daniel Jones be able to just lunge over the line to get the first down. You want to make it a little bit more difficult on them. And also the big play aspect of it. To Michael's point, you don't want allowing them easily to get points on us to the point where we're in a position where we have to throw. With those pass rushers that they do have, T.J. Watt has 6.5 sacks this year. Highsmith has 5. So that is something to consider.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, now let's get into some fan questions to wrap up this show, brother. This one submitted by the Colonel. Why is everyone acting like the acquisition of Lattimore means Emanuel Forbes is leaving? I think Lattimore's arrival could mean improved roles for both Forbes and St. Just. Yes, Forbes was overdrafted. Does that mean we're just going to kick him to the curb? Or are we going to use our premier coaching staff to develop his ball hawking skills?
I think they've tried to develop his ball hawking skills, and I'm not going to say they've pushed him to the side, but they're getting more production and better reps on the field from guys like Noah Mikey Sammerstill, Benjamin St. Just. And I'm not going to, honestly, a guy like Lattimore, he's an 8-year veteran, Pro Bowl guy, had high success in this league, very good corner, could maybe teach a guy like St. Just, or not St. Just too, but a guy like Forbes a couple things as well. And hopefully Forbes kind of latches onto those things and picks up those techniques, and a guy like Lattimore helps him. But I don't see a guy like Lattimore getting inserted to the lineup and then that being more reps for a guy like Forbes, who wasn't even getting those reps before a guy like Lattimore got here. So
Fair.
maybe like for like a long-term play type thing, like maybe a guy like Lattimore helps out Forbes and maybe he picks up some things from Lattimore and he does do that ball hawking stuff, and maybe Joe Witt and those guys keep coaching him up, and then he finally shows like a little bit of flashes of what we all thought he would be when he was drafted. But as of right now, it kind of seems like he's falling out of favor, and hopefully he's just taking the mental reps, and when he does get on the field, if he does get on the field, hopefully he makes the most of his opportunities.
Yeah, certainly this has been the case for a while now, but Emmanuel has had to earn his right onto the field, right? And even a guy like Mike Davis has to do the same thing. Oa Igbenogany has been doing a great job in the slot, what he's been asked to do. Mikey being pushed to the outside. I said it on Twitter that I thought maybe Mikey playing really well on the outside, I would be kind of concerned about moving him inside. But look, there's a little bit of a difference in what we're going to be asking later on. Arch has a similar question I do want to answer, give him that respect. But I don't think that we're just going to kick him to the curb, but it just makes it more difficult for him to get on the field, it seems like at this point. And obviously, I think Sam Fortier had tweeted out today that there was a point where Marshon Lattimore was not practicing today at practice, but he was working with Benjamin St. Just in just terms of technique, already to your point about helping with Emanuel Forbes, right? But I think that physicality is enormous, and that having the stable vet on that outside there, that to the point where you don't have to worry about that side of the field, is something obviously this coaching staff, this front office really felt that they needed to really go the extra gear, right, to reach that fifth gear. Because you could say with Trayvon Diggs and company and others that they've had, they always had that one guy out there, right, that they could depend on and say, let's worry about everything else. So maybe it's going to help them out a little bit. But him being an Eagle killer, obviously it's a very good reason to bring him in here. I'm sure A.J. Brown was not happy to hear about that. Now the next question from the Colonel. Following Chris Rodriguez's performance against the Giants during B-Rob's injury last week, do you see us signing him into the 53-man roster? Certainly he will be snatched up by another team if we return him to the practice squad. I don't think that we can return him to the practice squad, Colonel. I think that we've called him up 4 times, right? And so if you send him down one more time, that means that somebody can get him. I don't even think he goes to waivers. I don't think.
Right. Yeah, no, I was gonna say the same thing, and I think with them releasing Fa Obata and signing Lattimore, I think Rodriguez is still on the 53, like part of the active 53 as we speak. So I would assume that. Well, obviously they're also going to keep him up because they don't know like what's going to happen with B Rob going forward.
Right.
Like we talked, like a lot of people speculating talked about the Eagles game is more important as far as like the bigger picture, grand scheme things. So maybe you hold him out just to get a little bit more healthy against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and then he gets like 2.5 weeks of rest, and then he goes into the Philly game fully healthy or healthy enough. But yeah, so I could definitely see maybe him being on the 53 this week, and then maybe come Thursday they move some things around, shift some things around. But I would say as of the last week's performance, just like McNichols, he's kind of earned the spot to be on the 53 if they need him. Just like if his numbers called, they have the confidence to go out there. He's gonna go out there and do his job to the best full extent that he can. So yeah, I'm happy that he's on the 53, and hopefully he can stay on the 53.
Yeah, I do wonder, Colonel, because obviously B Rob being out last week, it was close. They say he just wasn't 100% right, I think is what Dan Quinn had said
Yeah.
about why he didn't play last week. But if he is going to play this week and if he's going to be used like he normally is, it does make you wonder going against Philly if B Rob's going to be taking more so of a back seat when that happens. And then they're going to go back to the Eckler, Jeremy McNichols, and C-Rod for that Thursday night game against Philly. And that would make sense if it was going to be this Sunday more predominantly B-Rob mixed with Eckler, and then Thursday night against Philly, it's much more so of Eckler with McNichols and C-Rod sprinkled in. So it is going to be a lot of fun to be able to see what they decide in that sort of aspect. So the way that they are navigating this, it is going to be a lot of fun to watch. But I think C-Rod at this point, he's on the roster. I don't think they can and basically what he had shown, I don't think they can mortgage him because, like you said, with B Rob's future, you don't truly know, and that's something you do have to be concerned about and just keep in mind. Now, next question we have is from Twitter. My man Tony Franchise early in the morning sent me this. What is the main key for victory versus the Steelers, Hall?
I would say being able to run the ball and I'm gonna say the same thing every week. Being able to run the ball but be able to run the ball on early downs or keep yourself in short and like manageable, basically, because if they can continue to convert third downs or fourth and shorts like they have done all season, it's going to tire out guys like TJ Watt and Highsmith and Preston Smith from their pass rush, keep them on the field long enough and be able to tire them out. And that's going to open up running lanes for B-Rob, Eckler, whoever else is in the backfield. And it's going to be able to also help the linemen out with their blocking, give Jaden Daniels a little bit more time, dropping back, getting the ball out in the passing game. So I would say being able to keep yourself in third and manageable and on the early downs, having success, which they've done so far.
It's scoring touchdowns, in my personal opinion, not only because of the Austin Seibert injury concern, Tony, but also
The
given the
key is
fact.
to score more points than them. So,
Well, I know that,
I
but
know, I'm
also
joking.
because the Steelers' defense being number one in the league in the red zone conversion percentage, this is going to be huge. And then it brings up into the aspect of the field goal, the kicker being injured. And so you don't want to get into another one of those situations like you did against the Giants, like we did against the Bears, where you're allowing this veteran football team to be able to claw their way back into this. You need to be able to score touchdowns, be able to keep that worry away and convert those touchdowns in points, because this is a tough task. This is a very good football team. Cam Hayward in the middle, Patrick Queen there in the middle of the linebacking core, and then Minka Fitzpatrick in the back end, not even including Joey Porter Jr. on the outside. Very, very talented defensively, this Steelers defense is. So if you could score those points, that's when you're really in a good position. But ultimately, Tony, the number one key for victory is the turnover battle. Is this cannot be the game where we turn over the football a plethora amount. Them having 10 interceptions and 9 forced fumbles as a defense versus the Commanders who have 3 interceptions and 9 forced fumbles, you can't allow that offense to have a short field. And it seems like they're very dependent on that to be able to score points. And so you got to force them down the field. You cannot give those easy yards away to that defense because, look, they're good. This is a very good, talented team. Holy crap, that is a big freaking spider, bro. Hold on. Sorry, say something else so I can kill this thing real quick.
Yeah, I'd say another key would be they got to have at least, I would say, at least 2 to 3 explosive plays, like to kind of loosen up that defense, loosen up the pass rush, get Terry going downfield. Maybe it's Niami downfield. Maybe this is the Luke McCaffrey game where he finally gets loose and gets a pass downfield, separation wise. But yeah, I would say 2 to 3 explosive plays on offense is definitely going to be a key that I'll be looking out for as
Yeah,
well.
that thing was creeping up on me like
Dog,
it was like
I
4
would
a.m. at a
literally, you
Diddy
would have saw
party,
me
bro.
scream like a little girl and run away. I
Th-
legit hate spiders.
That was a big mug right there. My bad. Thank you for carrying me a little bit there because that was that kind of shook me for a second. Now the next question we have is from Tim Towner in the Discord. Crowder is about ready to return from the IR. Would you bring him back now or try and slide to practice squad? And if you do add him, who would you remove?
Um, so I don't know like the exact practice squad like requirements because he's a veteran. He's been in the league for like X amount of years at this point, and I know once you hit a certain amount of years in the league, you can't get put on practice squad. So yeah,
I think they changed those parameters. I think it's more
oh, did
so
they?
it's the if you've been in the league for 4 years, you don't go through waivers. You're just ready to be picked up right
Okay,
away. I think.
all right, bet.
I might be
But
wrong.
yeah, as far as he goes on the roster, I mean, I could definitely see them like bringing him back, putting him on practice squad, kind of getting him back into the swing of things, and maybe if you see that he's producing and getting like ramped up in practice, maybe you put him on the 53 and maybe he's back there returning punts or maybe something like that. But honestly, they've had Oz back there and he's done a pretty good job returning punts this year. Eckler obviously has been pretty damn good on the kickoffs when they do actually kick it to him. So yeah, it's going to be hard at this point now that they're rolling and there's been like Michael Phillips was talking about. There's different receivers stepping up each week. It's kind of hard to kind of look at the roster and say, hey, we're going to take this guy off to put Jamison on, only strictly for 3 plays a game. If like we force 3-4 punts a game, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, it's going to be tough. But I love JMO, so he can get back. Then I would love to see it.
Yeah, and obviously his veteran presence, he has been very productive when he's on offense, not including what he does on special teams, Tim. But I think that with the acquisition of Marshon Lattimore, depending on when he's able to go, when he's actually healthy 100%, I do think one of the corners, maybe Mike Davis, Emanuel Forbes, could be subject to possibly being brought down if you do bring Crowder up. But would I bring him up right now? No. And like this is like that kind of game where you don't want Oz to make that fatal mistake as a punt returner, right? And he's been getting close to it a little bit. It seems like some people are kind of concerned about his punt returning at this point, just maybe allowing things to be a little bit too
I mean,
close.
he does wait a little too long to like whether he's going to fair catch it or not, or just
Right.
catch it straight up. But I mean,
Yeah.
knock on
So
wood.
I don't know 100% if I would right now. I think at this point, I think you're probably feeling really well about the wide receiver group in itself. I think Luke McCaffrey could possibly, be utilized a little bit more. We have seen him be open on plays where you're just not seen, right? And so, do we honestly need that production 100%? I'm not sure. Depending on what the offense wants to do schematically, right? If they want to spread people out a little bit more and operate underneath, then maybe you do get James Crowder involved and up. But I think at this point, just let him chill for a little bit and then call him up in my personal opinion. Now, the next question in Discord, Tim Towner again, he asks, bringing Obata back this year surprised me, and after 2 to 3 weeks, they seemed ready to part ways. But I am not about to complain about the personnel the team has made this year. That said, what do you think has been our best/worst free agency signing? And of the players we released or are about to release, which has been the most disappointing/surprising?
Well, I'd say the worst is probably Michael Davis. That was the one of like the what is it, like 15, 16 free agents they brought in. But yeah, out of the guys that they brought in and the guys that like made the roster, I'd say Michael Davis is probably the one that was probably the miss, just because we saw week 2 he was getting cooked by Malik Neighbors. I don't think they've put him back on the field as far as like cornerback goes, reps go since then. Maybe they have. I don't know. I haven't really paid attention like specifically to him, but
To the snap
I
count.
know I know he's on special teams here and there a lot, but I mean, we don't even punt a lot nowadays too. So it's like, but yeah, I would say he's like the one miss, and I would say the best or one of the best signings. I mean, I guess you got to go with Frankie Louvu. I mean, you see, he's like
Bobby
the
Wagner.
I know, but I know I would say Frankie Louvu just because you can go with both of those guys. They play right next to each other. But you're starting to see that Joe Witt and these guys are starting to move them all around the defense. Obviously, everyone sees the hype videos, the two claps Ric Flair has taken over. And yeah, he's just a guy that flashes all the time. He's always flying around, big hype guy. Maybe having a Pro Bowl type season. So yeah, definitely Frank Louvu is one of the better signings they had.
I would agree with you. I think Bobby Wagner defensively has been priceless. It's immeasurable what he has brought being a coach on the field. He knows what Dan Quinn likes to do. I think Dante Fowler, 6.5 sacks. That's somebody that I was not 100% bought into when he originally was brought on, but obviously he's been just such a difference maker. I think he has to be included into that. And it's funny because you could say a lot about people that have been brought in, even Jeremy Chin doing a lot himself. But I think without a doubt is Tyler Badass himself, because he has brought that driving force up the middle, especially with running the football. Pairing him up with Allegretti and Cosme has really helped out this offensive line. And we talked about it all offseason. If you had to bank on having a veteran left tackle or a rookie or with a rookie center, or would you rather have a veteran center and a rookie left tackle? In my personal opinion, having the veteran center was much more important than having the veteran left tackle. Being
Yep.
able to call the line of scrimmage, being able to breathe the stability, so to speak, and he really has brought that edge, that tenacity, and does a very good job of being able to communicate to all the guys of what's going to happen on every snap. And so I think that's somebody that would not get all the limelight, would get all the shine, but has certainly had a huge impact on this offense. So I definitely think those two guys. And the worst, I think Mikey Davis. Obviously, I don't want to pick on the young man. Obviously, I think that is one. Uh, the other ones that you can really think of, man, I'm not really 100% sure about with the free agent, because they've done a very good job with free agency.
I was gonna say it seems like, especially like the kind of like the
Oh,
top
I got one.
5 to 6 guys. It seems like all those
I got
guys have
one.
had one game or 2 games where
I
they
got one.
flashed and kind of like made big differences. So
Uh, you can't even discount Austin Seibert as well. I think that's another
yeah,
one
yeah.
you could really bring up. Wait, or did we trade for him?
No, we picked him up in free agency.
Oh yeah, no, it was the other dude. But the free agency, say Brandon McManus. That's easy, bro. That's an easy one.
Yeah,
Look,
yeah.
I know he's doing well for Green Bay. I'm just saying I have to pick one. That's the one I'm going to be. Now, the next question is from Deluxe in the Discord. This is a move as much about the future as it is about now. Realistically, how soon can Lattimore make an impact this season? Health assumed, of course. What do you think his snap count looks like in the coming weeks? So, how can he make an impact? And then, what do you think his snap count's going to be?
So I mean, if they can get him out here for a couple snaps this Sunday, that would be excellent to kind of get his feet back under him, get him a little bit acclimated. Don't put the full 80 plus 90 plus percent of the snaps on him, but I would say if they can get him out there for like 10 to 15 snaps, get his feet wet, get him back on the field since he's been out for however long with the hamstring, get his feet under him, get him acclimated with the guys on the field and how
Mm.
it's going to be. That would be great. And then come Thursday, put him out there with AJ Brown and pretty much monitor him throughout the game. Like, hey, how you feeling? How you feeling? And go from there. But yeah, I would say as far as impact goes, I would say that Philly game, if he can get back healthy and is healthy enough to get on the field, I think we're going to see his impact against Philly right off the break next Thursday.
Damn you. If the hamstring is legit, Arch, because the colonel said that he was kind of concerned about how much we gave up given his injury with the hamstring at the moment. And my point to him was, sometimes, I'll say sometimes, it seems like teams will give an injury designation to somebody to keep them healthy so they can still warrant so much capital in return, if that makes sense. So, like in the one point you being Devonta Adams as of late, recently, you could point to and say, apparently his injury just magically disappeared when he went to New York. I don't know what, maybe stem cell research or something out in New York. I'm not sure what that's about, but that's somebody you
Yeah,
could point
Aaron
to.
Rodgers gave him that ayahuasca.
Right. And like, I don't know if it may magically overnight, if somebody's going to be able to fix his hamstring for him to play this Sunday. But if that hamstring is legit, I could see a much more scenario where he's in plain clothes on Sunday and he's ready to strap up on Thursday against the Eagles, which is on a short week. If that injury, if the hamstring is like a little bit sore or whatever on a Sunday game, most likely he won't be able to go that Thursday. And so if it is legit, I would definitely see him not playing this Sunday and making his debut on Thursday for Thursday Night Football. I know Jeff Bezos and Amazon would probably be very happy to hear that. Just a little bit more attention to it and the hysterics that come along with it. Now, and his impact. So I definitely think he's going to make an impact this season. I think it's unquestioned, and we kind of already highlighted it. But specifically for this defense and what it allows for Joe Witt and company, regardless if he is 100% or not, every offense, every guy going up against Marshon Lattimore knows who he is. They know what he does. The physicality is there. He is not a, he's a Dan Quinn kind of brought it up with him being a badass, just wanting to go up against the best guy that you have, getting
Dog
to,
ass competitor.
yeah, a
When
physical
Dan
dude.
Quinn when Dan Quinn calls you anything with a competitor in it, that's like his highest compliment.
And so, like, that sort of mentality transcends health and speed, so to speak, because that already is going to be in the head of the opponent that they're facing. And so it's not like they're going against an Emanuel Forbes or Benjamin St. Juste where they know that cushion is there. Where much more so, Lattimore is a very sticky guy. He's able to stay on you. He's gonna put his hands on you in a legal way, and he's gonna make you work for your routes. And somebody like Terry McLaurin knows all too well about what that's like going against Lattimore in that sort of situation. I think his impact is going to be immense to the point where it's going to make things a little bit easier for Joe Witt, Jason Simmons, and company, and being able to game plan for somebody like the Eagles. Whereas we could say, go out there out wide and A.J. Brown, and then we'll see what they're going to do with Dallas Goedert and Devontae Smith, Jahan Dotson, if he does make it onto the field. It makes things a lot easier for them in that regard. Whereas, like, they don't have to look at that as a liability wherever A.J. Brown is because Marshon Lattimore is on them, and you have that confidence. And that little extra oomph is going to help them tremendously as defensive coordinators. I think his impact is going to be massive. Do I think statistically you're going to see a bunch of interceptions or anything like that? No. Like, he has 30 tackles this year, only 2 passes defensed, and you can look at that and say, well, that's not all that much. Well, it's because most likely teams aren't targeting him
I was
because
gonna
of
say he doesn't get a lot of action his way.
exactly because of his coverage, and so that's where it helps out everybody else in the sense of having to force the ball over there instead of over here, and it makes the defensive coordinator jobs a little bit easier. And anything helps in this line of work. Now, the next question we have is also from Deluxe. His question is, which corner goes inside? Or do they platoon it based on matchup? Benjamin St. Juste was originally envisioned in the slot due to his size and quickness. It's also Mikey's natural position. I love this question. It's a hot one.
Yeah, I think you're gonna see a rotation. I don't think you're specifically gonna see BSJ in the slot just because normally the guys in the slot are like the smaller, fast, twitchy type guys, which that's kind of what St. Juice like struggles with when you got guys like Zay Flowers and whatnot matching up against him. Which this week you got a guy in Calvin Austin who's kind of like that twitchy kind of fast guy. So I would say that we don't know if Lattimore's going to be out there, but I would say that yeah, I think it's going to be a rotation. You'll see Mikey on the outside, you'll see him on the inside, you'll see Noah I on the outside, on the inside, BSJ outside, inside. And I think that you've already started to see kind of Joe Witt and Dan Quinn kind of mix up the defensive fronts, mix up the lineup, like the front seven looks, mix up the coverage looks. A guy like Lattimore, even without him stepping in this week, but when he does finally step in, it just allows you to just get a lot more exotic, a lot more different looks on the back end. He's a guy that plays man-to-man really well, so they can play a lot of man coverage, which they love to do that, going back to their Dallas days. So I would say that, yeah, you're going to see a rotation of guys, but eventually you're going to see Lattimore on the outside or traveling with the one, and everyone else isn't going to be doing their own thing.
I knew I should have went first.
You should have.
I should have went first. And you're 100% right based on the matchup. And I put on Twitter that Mikey has really come into his own, been very productive when he's on the outside. Obviously, in the first week that he played on the outside in week 3 against the Bengals, he gave up the big pass to Jamar Chase, but obviously things have changed for him on the outside there. And one of the reasons why I wanted originally to move Mikey to the outside was typically what teams are doing early on is they were forcing Mikey to come in next to the linebackers almost on the tight end, and then they would run at him using a pull game, a trap block, something to be able to get a big body on Mikey on that side, which would make things easier for the run game to be able to move up. And that is still my kind of concern. I'm not concerned about Mikey Samerstill's coverage ability as a slot corner. I think he's going to be fantastic wherever he is. I'm much more so thinking of it in like a math kind of way where you got 350 pounds going on damn near 170, 180 on Mikey being able to swallow that up and then some to be able to help things out in the run game. That is my kind of concern. So that's why I almost like Mikey on the outside. But I also understand that he played slot his senior year. And I do think that's one thing that's being overlooked. Not overlooked. There's too much credence added to it. Mikey, his first 3 years in Michigan, he was a wide receiver. Last year, he started at slot and did really well, played some on the outside. His first 2 games in the NFL, he starts in the slot, moves outside, and has produced in a big way. Obviously, people can say that his maturation and getting more productive can be based on him more reps in the NFL, which obviously can be the case. But my whole point is, it's not like the slot is what he's been doing his entire life. He's a very versatile piece. I think that he can be anywhere. And like you said, ultimately, I think it's going to be based on matchup. If the Eagles want to push A.J. Brown in on the slot to run a slot on a certain play, Marshon Lattimore can go with him. Mikey can go outside and go be able to face Devonta Smith or put Benjamin St-Juste on Devonta. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's going to be like kind of like that to the point where you're not pigeonholed in any sort of way. You can kind of move guys around in that rotation. I don't ultimately think that Mikey is strictly going to be slot. I do think they're going to be rotated based on what the offense brings to their plate. And that is what ultimately what you want. That is what you want as a defensive coordinator. You don't want everyone to be cookie cutter. It's much easier for teams to attack you if they know what you're going to be in.
But to your point about the run fitting, like I get what you're saying because we saw that early in the season, like we talked about, like you talked about. But I feel like you said, with more reps, obviously he's going to get better in the slot. And going against a guy like Chris Godwin and like Malik Neighbors, whoever it was week 2 in the slot, obviously they're going to eat guys up. They're going to eat most cornerbacks in the NFL up.
I think it was Wandale in week 2.
Yeah, Wandale Robinson. Yeah,
he got that out route for a touchdown on him.
He was like a short, shifty veteran slot wide receiver. So going against a rookie, you would kind of expect that. But with the run game, I feel like he did it at Michigan as far as like taking on linemen and getting active in the run game, being physical. So I feel like, yes, it's like a different ball game. You're going against grown men in the NFL, but I feel like he will figure out a way to kind of adjust to it and also be able to still play his run fits and be physical with the lineman or whoever's coming at him. And as long as he plays the outside shoulder and turns the running back, whoever else inside, he's kind of done his job. Like, he doesn't have to make the tackle. You know what I'm saying? So, like,
no.
I get your point. Yeah, I get your point as far as, like, it's concerning because you can run straight at him, put a big body on him, and we saw what happened the first 2 weeks. But I think that just like at Michigan, maybe it took him a while to kind of get acclimated, figure things out, but eventually he did, which is why this coaching staff loved him so much.
Yeah, I'm not like concerned about him making the tackle. It's much more so if a block is coming onto you, like Reed at a Diddy party. If a block is coming onto you, you have to be able to stand up that block, keep one hand free in case that runner bounces outside, right, or bounces inside. You have to be able to get off it. And just naturally speaking, given body size, arm length.
It's hard when you got a guy like 3 times your size.
And your whole job as offensive lineman is just to take that guy out of the play. Well, naturally, going against those 350s, 320 guys, that's going to be kind of easy for them just to be able to get in the way of Mikey and that wide open on the outside and the kind of inner seam sort of way. That's where my mind is thinking of. Not much more. Obviously, he comes in and makes tackles all the freaking time. He's fantastic at it. And obviously, in pass coverage, I really do have confidence in him. It's just much more so the schematic game plan sort of way where it almost seemed like a liability early on, and moving him out to outside took away that liability. Whereas Noah kind of has a little bit more stature, I guess you could say, was getting his head and nose into the. But obviously, you could say that maybe Mikey can do the same thing Noah can from that standpoint. To your credit,
but like you said, but that's why it's good to have versatile pieces so you can
right.
swap them in and out.
Now let's do our predictions to wrap up this one, brother. Real quick, I'll rip off the stats. Let's start with the Steelers on offense. In red zone conversion percentage, they're 13th. In 30th. In points per game, they're 13th. Passing yards, they're 26th. In rushing yards, they're 8th. In third down percentage, they're tied for 12th. In sacks, they're tied for 20th. On defense, they are first in red zone conversion percentage. They are second in points per game, 21st in passing yards, 4th in rushing yards. They are 11th in third down percentage, and they are 17th in sacks. The Commanders are on offense are 26th in red zone conversion percentage, 3rd in points per game, 11th in passing yards, 3rd in rushing yards, 4th in third down conversion percentage, and tied for 8th in sacks per game. And then defense, we are 28th in red zone conversion percentage, 11th in points per game, 5th in passing yards, 28th in rushing yards, 22nd on third down, and 13th in sacks per game. So that being said, what's your prediction?
Yeah, our offense is clicking on all cylinders for the most part. Their defense is top in the league or one of the top in the league. Got all pros, playmakers on each level. Definitely Pro Bowlers on each level at the minimum. Obviously, great coach team with Mike Tomlin and those guys. I think it's going to be a tough game. It's going to be one of those tough, gritty games. It's going to be like a slobber knocker, slugfest type of game.
Slobber
A lot of
knocker.
a lot of running the ball on both sides with the Steelers and us. A lot of attempts for Najee, Brian Robinson, guys like that. I think it's going to be a lower scoring game. I think Michael Phillips hit it on the head. They're going to get to around 20, 21 points and say defense, go win it for us. I think that Jaden Daniels gets the ball in his hands late, under 2 minutes left to go, gets us down the field, puts us in field goal range. We'll see if Cyber can go or not. That might be the deciding factor. But if he can go and he's full go and can kick, I'll say Jaden Daniels drives us down, less than 2 minutes to go, puts us in field goal range. We win the game 23-21.
Okay, I like that one a lot. If this was a primetime game, I would think it's going to be more high scoring. I think the Steelers team altogether, they just do better in primetime. But because it's a 1 o'clock game, the over under I think is set at 45.5 right now. Or is that total points, whatever it is. I do think it's going to be under, to your credit. I do think it's going to be just south of that because of the kind of matchup that it is. Whereas defensively, I think that we've been playing better than our stats show. And they're offensively, I think they are better offensively than their stats show because Justin Fields has played so much. Russell Wilson's only played in, 2 or 3 games up until this point this year.
Yeah, I think like 2 games.
So I do think that it's going to be a little bit different of a match there. And the field goal kicking is going to be very different for us, obviously, in this game if it is legit how Austin Seibert's going to play. But that being said, I do think that we are going to win the game 24-20. Is what I will say, and that we're able to get a short field goal. But I do think that the difference in all of this is they have Arthur Smith calling their offense, and I think that Marcus Mariota, I think that Dan Quinn and company might have been paying attention a little bit to Atlanta, and with Tennessee, with Arthur Smith going back there, they kind of maybe know what that scheme is like, what they like to do, and so I do think that we'll be able to stop them enough. And to be able to get some points scored. And the difference for us being Cliff Kingsbury and being able to help out those tackles, using the chip blocks, using the wide game, making sure that Cam Hayward can't be a threat in the middle, making sure it gets on the outside, and being able to convert third downs. This is a very good defense, a very good team that they have a ton of respect for. It's going to be, like you said, it's going to be a bar fight, a bare-knuckle match, and whoever gets the last hit wins. And I think that is us, given with number 5. Said it that last drive inside 2 minutes against the Giants. Not every team has that luxury of having the confidence that your guy is going to be able to win the game for you in that situation, and that we certainly have that at the moment, and that's what I'm going with. So 24-20, the good guys win, and the burgundy and gold towels stay, baby.
Gavin was so salty when I told him that. He was like, "Oh, dick riders." It's like,
we're trolling you.
That's what I said. I was like, if it was for like a whole all season thing, I'd be like, yeah, you're right. This is a one game thing to troll you guys.
Yeah.
To make it look like it's a burgundy and gold all home field advantage. Like, what are you talking about? And he's like,
he's just mad that he can't be out there like this and stand out, like to show how many Steelers fans.
It's too early for you to be awake. Go back to sleep.
Yeah, exactly. All right, everybody. That's going to wrap us up for this episode. Thank you to everyone who contributed. Thank you to Tim Towner, Arch, Tony Franchise, Colonel. We appreciate you guys. We love you guys. Have a good, safe week. Be happy. Everything is all right, baby. Don't worry. We're all going to be good, man. All right, everybody. I'm Kyle.
I'm Hall.
And we'll see you guys again on Sunday. We'll talk about next week on Sunday's show after the game. But we'll kind of talk about, because they're playing on Thursday, maybe we'll switch some things around.
I was like, what's going on next week?
No, just might have to switch things around. You know what I'm saying? All right, everybody. We'll see you then. Have a good, safe week. Washington football. Woo! Washington football. Woo! What's up, everyone? This is Kyle from the Burgundy Zone. We are releasing our own merch to support the show. If you want to rock the Burgundy Zone logo, or you want to see Reed's face on your shirt, we got it. We're starting with t-shirts, hoodies, and zip-up. So if you're a fan of the show, make sure you snag one before they are gone. Check out the link in our bio on Instagram, or you can find the link in the description of the video. Thanks again for all your support. Until next time.